Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the SMITE update for today. February 7th. There's a lot of things we're going through. I know there's no patch this week. We decided to extend the show into doing more update, more about the tournaments, more about what's going on in the community and things like that, just covering what's going on. So as always, I'm here with my co-host Octane Pro.
How's it going, guys? Yeah, we decided to, we were like, oh, this show's doing really well, and we'd hate to just do it when the patch comes out because we could see a long period of time that, we wouldn't be able to go over a show. So we decided, hey, let's kind of change up the show a little bit. So our layout is we're going to do community news, talk about tournament results, talk about team announcements, any useful articles we found that we thought would be good for you guys. If there's patch notes, we'll go over the patch notes. Then we'll jump into a little game development, talk about some things that we're seeing that's starting to develop, and then finally listener feedback. So we want to hear from you guys. We've had a few YouTube comments that we're going to touch on. We've had a few iTunes comments. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at right now. How have you been this week, Dry Bear? Anything kind of sticking out for you outside of just the typical for you with producing some great quality YouTube videos?
No, just that. Just having some fun playing some Smite and enjoying all the changes that are going through.
All right, well, sweet. Well, let's go ahead and jump into community news for this week, guys. I'll go ahead and take that here first. First thing was a tournament that we had that finished up this past weekend, the My Revenge Smite Cup number 9. Was an amazing series, and actually Dry Bear can give a little bit more information, but let's go ahead and go first place, Viva City EU, second place, Dream Team Hindala, third place, Worth It Gaming, and finally fourth place, Generation X. So you actually had the pleasure of casting a lot of this. Overall, what do you think of it, and what do you think about the results?
Well, this was the one I casted was the January finals. There was a cup. All these cups are placement cups that allow you to be invited into the finals for the My Revenge monthly finals. So the January finals is the one that I casted. I didn't get to see any of these My Revenge Cup number 9s.
Okay.
But it's interesting to see Worth It and Dream Team Hindla pop up and do that because they did place in the casual competitive tournament as well. They played in both of them.
Wow.
And I did cast a couple of games for Dream Team. And they looked really good. They looked really sharp the ways they played. I'm surprised to see that Kings ended up winning off the BLG Casual Competitive. But for the Smite Cup number 9, I mean, I didn't catch any of it, but it was a lot of action. And it's important to note that a lot of the teams that are sponsored now are doing really well weren't in that cup because they were part of the finals. So I mean, it allows other teams an opportunity to start getting invited to those monthly finals.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Jumping into our second point of news, then we can touch a little bit on what you said there. The BLG Casual Competitive Tournament number 2 finished up this past weekend, and special thanks to BLG for definitely putting those on. First place went to King, second place Dream Team Hindala, and third place Worth It Gaming. As we kind of talked about there, after that tournament finished up, and I guess Demian Machine actually noticed, hey, we're having a lot of crossover between the My Revenge tournaments and the BLG tournaments. And we're not really supposed to because the BLG tournaments are supposed to be a little bit more casual. And so he made an announcement saying, quote, "We've had a lot of feedback today on the tournament, and for the next tournament, we're going to implement a 2,300 ELO cap to participate." And I kind of discussed it with him. It is not per team, the 2,300, it's per player. So that's just something kind of there. And you actually had the pleasure as well of casting this. What'd you think?
It was a lot of fun. I got interrupted in the middle of it. I was doing, I think we got to like round 2 or 3, and then I guess the casters for the My Revenge tournament finals weren't available, so I had to switch over on the Smite Game channel and start doing that.
Okay.
So I didn't get to cast the finals there, but I did get to see Dream Team Hindla go at it. Very impressive there. I got to see Worth It Gaming. We did see Worth It Gaming in the first one as well. So some new teams coming up from the community. They don't really have sponsorships, but they definitely have the talent. So it's exciting to see how these casual competitive tournaments are leading into the bigger tournaments and how this is kind of like a proving ground type of thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I will let you take the next note, and we can discuss that a little more.
All right. Well, the next thing is it's kind of a big thing that got announced about a day or so ago. The common team that everyone does know is Juice Gaming, and they have been talking with getting a different sponsorship, trying to move on to a different team name or anything that really would help their game grow. And they finally did announce what they've been working with, and they actually did get a sponsorship with Root Gaming. So now Juice Gaming will be Root Gaming. I know a lot of people have already seen this update But this is kind of a big thing for them. It's a big thing for Smite as well. The fact that
Yeah.
organizations like Root are paying attention to Smite and moving along and kind of pouring money and interest into the scene, so help Smite grow. One of the big things too is Root, not one of the biggest sponsors, but they have been very common in games like StarCraft 2, where you see a lot of Root gaming,
Yep.
and the fact that they announced that might mean that we'll have more of an influx of competitive players into Smite.
Yeah, definitely. It didn't. It was kind of cool. A few weeks ago, we saw a post on Reddit, and it was kind of like that teaser video, where it's this long paragraph discussing, hey, something's coming big for Juice, and it kind of nonchalantly mentioned all these different like team names with using them, but kind of not on purpose. And so it's really really cool to see that coming, and I was really happy to see this. We saw one of the My Revenge teams actually get picked up by SK Gaming quite a few weeks back, and that was kind of like the big shocker for the esports world for Smite, because prior to that, there was no large esports organizations that actually sponsored a Smite team. All the Smite teams were kind of sponsored by the websites or small organizations in the industry. And now I know Smite is still in its infancy, but this was huge because now we're seeing team number 2, kind of around the same time as that $100,000 tournament is getting pushed out there from High Res. And so this is really exciting. I actually read as well that this announcement actually crashed Root's forums once this was announced, because all the information was on their forums. So that's really cool to see. And you're starting to see an overlap now. Is like you're starting to see League of Legends, because Root has their team, and also with StarCraft 2, which I know a lot about that just with following the StarCraft 2 scene. But now you're starting to see that like merge into Smite. Smite's kind of been like its own little entity for a while, and yeah, it's a MOBA, but it's kind of not, because it has like the MMO type of style to it. So it's really exciting to see these genres now starting to merge, and Smite getting the attention that it deserves. I guess my question is opinion-based here, opinion-based, Dry Bear. Who do you think is the next team that will get picked up? I have one in mind, but what about you? What are your thoughts?
Uh, actually, no. So I don't really have an opinion on that. But I can't say anything. So I don't know, really,
here it goes first. A little drama starting up here.
Top teams that really deserve to have the sponsorship.
Okay.
So I can't really say exactly who would deserve it the most. But there are a lot of top teams. We do see a lot of champions rising from all the different tournaments. And the fact there's a league showing up as well. I expect a lot of these sponsorships to come in. One by one as Smite does grow. So it could be really any of the teams.
Yeah, and I guess the big thing is right now I don't unless if they've set a date yet for that $100,000 tournament. I think once that date is released, we'll start to see kind of the industry get pushed forward in regards to maybe teams getting put together a little faster, sponsors coming together a little quicker. Unless you know the date just yet.
Not yet. But I think the biggest thing about a tournament that big is it has the excitement and the competitiveness of it has to match the prize. So they have to be very careful. I think a lot of these invitationals and trial runs and all these different leagues and tournaments have to go on for a little while, just so we can hone down, make the teams a little bit better, and make the competition a little bit more fierce, so that when people do realize, oh, this is a $100,000 tournament, so we do get that extra viewership, that we can actually stick the landing, so to speak, when people come in and see all the action and the intenseness, rather than just like inchoate or new teams trying to come in and get stomped. Because I know a lot of people don't really like watching that kind of action. They like to see head-to-head, back and forth type amazing plays things. So I think a little bit more growth for the competitive scene, and definitely land right on top of that $100,000 tournament would be very important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Next thing, just kind of a little news that we kind of saw in the community recently, was on Reddit. We actually had a post from Pon, and what team? Do you remember what team he plays for right now?
He was on a separate team, and now he was a ringer for Procore Gaming in the most recent tournament.
Okay. But anyways, he came out with a post on Reddit, which was really, really cool, because we're starting to see more and more of these posts come out that are more analytical based, analyzing things. And what we saw was that we saw a post come out with him, which kind of had some really strong opinions, but had a lot of facts to support it regarding the metagame and where we're seeing it going. And one of the first big points he made was, currently teams are favoring a heavy tank style of play. Gods like Bacchus, Hercules, Sobek Vamana, Ymir, Guan were all huge picks that teams were getting. Ra, who can also be considered tanky, was also hugely sought after. Another common strain is that these tanks have a lot of CC, generally more than one form. Tanks are currently dominant. What are your thoughts on that and the kind of the things that he pointed out there from the tournaments that he viewed?
Well, it's Pompon, and Pompon likes his stats. He likes to analyze things like that. And I think this happens in every single MOBA. Every
Yep.
single one of them goes through a stage where, you have a certain lineup, and then someone figures out the counter to that lineup, and now because that counter is so good, it forces the whole meta to change. But then someone finds a counter to that meta, and it just starts rotating and rotating and rotating. The thing we had is we had a heavy Heartseeker, physical damage dealer, physical carry lineup. Very high burst damage, but very squishy. So, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did see teams start picking up, a lot of tanks, a lot of brawlers. They would go for a Vamana brawler. They would go for a Thor brawler. They would go for a heavy tank lineup so that when you have these heavy burst damage carries with, the liability aspect of their HP and survivability who can't burst down these tanks anymore, now the brawlers and the bruisers are outlasting the damage and killing the damage dealers
Yeah.
because they're so squishy. So because that was such a good counter, it forced the meta to switch to a heavy tank lineup. And even the last tournament on Sunday, we did see the introduction of a Loki, which ended up bursting through the tanks and picking off squishy characters too. So that might switch it up a bit. But there's always going to be this type of circular motion where we have a really strong meta that someone finds a really good counter to it. That counter forces the meta to shift to that, and then someone counters it and shifts it again. It just keeps going and going and going. And we might even go back around to another Heartseeker type physical carry lineup. It all depends on how the meta changes and how people end up playing it. So yeah, the first note is pretty obvious. I mean, a lot of times we do see, Bacchus, Hercules, Sobek, Vamana, Emir, Guan Yu were very big picks, and for a good reason, because it gives you good sustain, gives you good survivability, and also good team fight prowess. Whereas, the physical carries that are very easily picked off by small amounts of damage, who can't really use their damage effectively to kill anyone, it's just not going to be something that they can survive. So we did see that shift about a couple weeks ago, and we might see another shift here soon.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I mean, with the patch that we saw regarding the Sobek adjustment, it completely backs that entire statement that you made, along with Ponpon's point there. Jumping in to just combine the next two here, pretty much Hell kind of fell off, and he was making a point there, pointing out that, Hell wasn't really worth fighting over now that we saw 3 patches that actually made adjustments, some may say nerfs, to her. And furthermore, we start to see kind of the ADs more favored and falling off. And some of the points he made was, in a current tank CC heavy meta, Artemis wasn't picked once, and her lost every time, and the only ranged AD that was picked consistently was LeBlanc. What are your thoughts on that statement there?
Pretty obvious. Artemis is her biggest liability is the fact that she has no mobility, and even so, the only reason you can play an on her or a Sun Wukong or anything like that is because they do have enough mobility to get themselves out if they get into danger or reposition themselves during team fights. Without that aspect, they really have nothing going for them besides their damage, which they're not going to be doing to the brawlers anyway or the tanks. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Artemis is just too much of a liability at that point. Even Loki has more mobility than Artemis does. So, especially with the nerf to her traps when Focus was introduced, she really doesn't have any control. So, in a competitive scene where you have good collaboration between teammates and strategies going into place, you can easily just go in the back and kill Artemis. There's not a whole lot she can do about it. So she's more of a liability there. The On Her losing every time, I can see that. On Her is one of those characters that can put a lot of damage, but the thing is, if you're not together enough, it only takes, one slip up before, On Her gets picked off in the back or just dies somewhere. I mean, it's just the fact that they're a liability in the current lineup, so that doesn't surprise me at all. And the thing about Hell too, Hell's only strength really was in the mid lane, where she could easily she can push by healing and damaging at the same time, and then she could scale up quickly. I think the nerf to her ultimate just dropped her effectiveness completely. So the thing is, she was good because she could scale so quickly and get her momentum up. If she doesn't get any momentum, if she gets ganked in the early game or just gets shut down, she's not very good. So that extra nerf on top of the fact that you're playing against players that do recognize that fact means that Hell is not really going to be part of that lineup either. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. I mean, Hell definitely was that mid character where you didn't want to allow her to get a few levels on you or to dominate, because endgame it was just ridiculous. So I completely understand, the adjustments that Hi-Rez made to her in order to flatten things out a little bit more, make it a little bit more balanced. I don't know if they might be happy with Hell now that, it went from, oh, you have to ban Hell, to now, as that statement said, it's not really worth wasting your ban on Hell now. And to follow up on some of the AD comments there, I really like Zablanc becoming more and more important in this game. I've seen several games over the past probably a few weeks now where Zablanc has become definitely very consistent in some of the top level play. He is a extremely heavy hitter late game. So I'm really impressed with Zablanc, and I personally would love to learn his style a little bit better than I already do, just because of how feasible he seems to be. Finally, the last point that we seem to have come across for Pon is currently Wukong, Thor, Hercules, and Vimana are the melee carries of choice. Kali, Bastet, Baka, Arachne are not picked once. This was referencing the tournament, and for similar reasons as the AD ranged. Wukong, Thor, Hercules, Vimana all bring good CC distribution and tankiness, while Baka, Bastet, Arachne, Kali are all built squishy and bring little to no CC to the table. He made an adjustment there later, saying Vimana, Hercules are more tanks, but they do provide a significant portion of physical damage as well. So just following up on that comment with the ADs, anything to add there?
Pretty much the same thing,
Okay.
and it really does. I mean, Vamana's awesome, and Thor especially very
Yep.
awesome. Hercules is good for initiation, the strong laning phase.
Yeah.
But just Vamana and Thor really have the power to tank and deal damage at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, if you build them right, a Thor late game and a Vamana late game can nearly match the damage output of a Fed ranged carry or melee carry. So, and it's just like they can absorb much more damage than any of them ever could.
Yeah.
So you take a hit in the damage department, but only slightly. But it increases your survivability by so much. And the thing is, like, Vamana can cause some pretty serious chaos, and both of those also have very good laning phases. Artemis really needs protection in the laning phase. On her needs, some good initiation, like an Amir on her, very strong lane there. But it removes the weakness that you have, the glaring weakness that you would have if you played an Artemis or an on her in the lane, whereas you kind of need to protect them. But instead, Thor and Vimana can kind of take care of themselves and absorb some damage in the process. So it really fits in very effectively there.
Agreed. And finally, last thing I just saw here was he did comment on mid, and he said Agni and Ra are pretty much the only two mids at the moment, while Ao and Anubis are also picked. This was likely due to Agni and Ra being unavailable due to picks and bans. While Ao and Anubis can definitely hold mid, Agni brings lots of fast AoE and CC, while Ra brings a lot of fast AoE and can sustain. In other words, these picks are more for later team fights than because they are currently so dominant mid, there is no other choice. Do you agree with that statement? Pretty much saying that Agni and Ra are pretty much the only viable mids at this point?
100%, and like he touched on, it's the fact it's not their laning phase. If you look at just the laning phase by itself, if people that are looking at laning phase, like why would Alquang or Anubis or Hebo not be picked in the mid lane because they're such good mids? It's not about the mid, it's about the team lineup. So if you look at the mid itself, a lot of people could push that in. Hebo, very aggressive, can counter Ogden quite easily if they're more aggressive than that. But the thing is when you get into the mid game and the late game, Alquang falls off, especially against a competitive team that can avoid those skill shots quite easily. So Alquang is one of those characters where he really is only damage. He doesn't bring much to the team fight himself. He doesn't have much. He doesn't have CC. The only thing he can do is like traffic control and damage output. And that's about it. Whereas with the Raw, one of the big things we do see with the Raw is the fact that the Solar Blessing is so good.
It is.
You can't let it go. I mean, you look at the ending numbers for the end of the match. You see Raz going between 13,000 and 19,000 healing done just with their Solar Blessing. I mean, it blows me away how much support Ra can bring. Even if he's built damage or if he's built support, either way, he'll still have a lot of healing, and that can help you push. Heal lineups are very popular for push lineups. You can sit on the enemy Phoenix and just push it down, war of attrition there. So Ra's very good at that. Agni especially, he's very good at starting fights. He's very good at picking off squishies and isolating people. He's very good at being defensive at the same time. So if you look at the mid lineups, I mean, especially with the introduction of Thor is very good at ganking the mid lane because you can't see it coming most of the time. But if you have an Agni's very difficult to gank with his stun and his Path of Flame, so he's very mobile. So it's hard to shut down the mid if it is an Agni. But Agni also has range and CC at the same time. So he brings, he adds momentum and more of like a blitzkrieg type style to the team fights that other carries or other characters couldn't. Anubis is in a bit of a liability, low mobility, so Anubis is good late game, can put out some good damage, even more so than Agni could. I mean, I think a late game Anubis can, if given the circumstances, Anubis could do more damage than Agni. But Anubis is just too much of a liability. It relies heavily on being able to land that Mummify constantly, which is very difficult against competitive players. But also the fact that if you catch Anubis, that's it. He's done. You can't defend yourself as Anubis, and that's kind of what we're seeing from the meta currently, is the ability to play characters that can escape from poor situations or from multi-ganks because they're so common in the Smite lineup as it is.
Yeah, sustainability is huge right now in game, especially as the game starts to develop more and more. And I completely agree with you. I mean, that escape is definitely necessary, and it's a big deal. I mean, Raw, you start to see Raw getting built in two different ways, as you had mentioned. As your tanky or a hybrid DPS as well, and then Agni has that quick escape, which is very effective. And Agni hits like a truck as you start to move through the game and the length of the game time. So yeah, I completely agree. I mean, they're my two favorite gods in the game that I probably play the most is Ra and Agni. But we'll go ahead and jump into the next article here, and why don't you go ahead and take it away?
So the next thing is, I know a lot of people who have been following the competitive scene for a while now know that Reason Gaming did lose Lassus and Matty Pocket from their lineup. Lassus and Matty Pocket ended up going to Juice Gaming, which is now Root Gaming. So they had those two holes in their lineup, and Reason Gaming did decide that they want to continue on in the scene. So what they ended up doing is picking up two new players. They picked up EMC and RXK to fill in that slot. So Reason Gaming is filling out their lineup, and their roster is becoming more full, so they might see them competing more often and showing up more in the tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. It was a shame that they kind of fell off there for a little while. They've definitely quite a few months back. I mean, they were a powerhouse in the game alongside Juice Gaming for quite some time. So I'm actually really happy about this. It's just a shame because the game is at a point now where, like, okay, we got these big tournaments coming out. It's kind of like we see these teams starting to join together, and look at a team like Juice and SK now. They've had that synergy, they've had that static team together for so long, and now you went from Reason Gaming, which a while ago was a powerhouse there, but now they're running into the thing where, like, oh yeah, we're gonna throw some new guys in here, and we're gonna try to get everything together, in time before the scene develops too much. But I'm happy that they're going to continue going. I mean, I'd hate to see a team fall off, and I think that's really my final comments regarding that article.
Yeah, same. Just more of a news update than anything else.
Definitely. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the game development section of the new layout of our show. We've had a little while since the last patch here, a little while being a few days. Now that you've had a chance to play it, you've played some of the adjustments. What are your thoughts about that patch now that a few days have passed and you've had the opportunity to play with some of the adjustments in game?
I kind of hoped that bans would be gone in normal mode, but beyond that, I mean, it's all pretty good.
Yeah.
I think Vulcan's settling into a comfortable state. A lot of people do think that he is still a little bit too strong, but I think he's fine. I mean, it's one of those play style things, and I never really call a god or character overpowered until it's been like at least a week or two, just because it changes your play style. Mm-hmm. You have to focus on changing your play style when you face up against that god, and I think people are starting to learn how to beat Vulcan. I don't think he's even really ban worthy as much anymore. It depends on your play. I mean, he can take off, but he's not as strong as he was, and he's not, as complaint worthy as he was in the beginning. So I think that patch was just about enough. Maybe a slight little bit more, but beyond that, I think he's about sitting comfy.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, now that you've seen it, you probably played a little bit, Sobek with the adjustment to his passive. Now that you got the chance to see that taken away, you think he's a little bit more balanced out as a tank now, or do you think that physical power as his passive was necessary?
Well, it's not his laning phase is great, but it's not just because of his passive. His passive was just icing on the cake.
Yep.
The fact that he could do that extra damage there. It does make his laning phase a little bit better, but Sobek is still a very strong god overall.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think some people underestimate him sometimes. The biggest thing and the thing that I really like about Sobek in this game is his sustainability. I mean, he has no problem going up against 3-4 gods sometimes, depending on the combination. So yeah, I agree, and I'll let you go ahead and take away the next two articles we have to discuss here for game development.
So the next thing is they're gonna release the next god Neith. It's possible confirmation. It's not 100%. We did have the Hercules troll where they said Hercules was going to be next, and then they released Xbalanque. So
Yep.
nothing's really confirmed. Too slightly, they might have done it recently, but
Yeah.
overall, I mean, we'll see. But Neith is interesting. They haven't really released her role. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's assuming she's going to be a ranged physical carry, but she has some interesting character abilities. And just I don't know. I'll just have to wait and see when she comes out and play her and see how she is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of cool to see it. Another. I mean, some people can look at it and be like, "Oh, it's another archer," just by the way that she looks and everything like that. So I'm really interested. I mean, we had talked about at one point. It would be cool if she didn't just shoot arrows. She like shot magical arrows or something different. So it wasn't just like an exact copy of Artemis in regards to the style of damage. But as you said before, we're kind of going to have to see. For those of you unsure, who is Neith? Neith was the goddess of war and hunting and had her symbol 2 arrows crossed over a shield. Her symbol also identified the city of Sais. This symbol was displayed on top of her head in Egyptian art. In her form as a goddess of war, she was said to make the weapons of warriors and to guard their bodies when they're dead. Neith is also the mother of gods in game Ra and also Sobek. So just a little background there on who exactly she is and how she kind of ties into that Egyptian type of god style.
Her ultimate worries me, so we'll see how it ends up working out. I'm eager to play her in game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'll let you go ahead and take the next point.
All right. Well, I know servers is a big issue for a lot of people, especially Australian. There are no Australian servers out there. But what they are doing is they're adding servers for Asia now. It's in the works, which should bring in a big crowd is for Smite, just to help it grow. The fact that they're adding those servers in Asia, I know there's a lot of players in Asia that really are kind of untapped, and I think. I'm surprised that Australian players are still playing with the ping they have to deal with. So I think adding more servers is always a good thing. I hope that they continue adding server regions and just keep adding more and more and more and more because one of the biggest things about Smite is the fact that it's hard to get a server that's comfortable as of right now. I mean, it is in open beta, so it's not top priority. But for release, I would like to see even more than just Asia. But Asia is a great step.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to see that the game is growing, especially by the player base. I know a little while back on Facebook, Hi-Rez had posted that they hit a million accounts, which is awesome, especially for something that is not even out of the beta form yet. And so it's really exciting to see that. Those of you that have been playing the game for quite some time have noticed the high ping issues. And some time back, before they even allowed you in-game to go ahead and set what server you'd like to set on as a global setting, you would know the difference when you got on an EU server versus an NA server. Like, you try to hit a stun, it wouldn't work. You'd try to hit, an impale on Anhur, and you'd miss it. So it was really important. It was a huge step for them to go, okay, we're going to move into... we're going to allow our users to set globally where they would like to launch off of for their games. But now to see them starting to, okay, we have enough on NA, we have enough on EU. Hey, we're starting to see a lot more growth in other parts of the world. Let's go ahead and bring on an Asia server. I think that's awesome. I mean, Asia is a huge market, as you said. I mean, over towards that way, StarCraft 2 and Brood War were a huge esports giants, and now League of Legends is huge over there. So to now start to tap into that market, I think it's a very wise decision from Hi-Rez. As you had said there, their servers are not available yet, but it's currently in the works.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, and I hope they continue to do this because it's one of the biggest things that makes games successful is functionality. So I think adding that server availability for as many regions as possible is very important.
Yeah, definitely. And that's pretty much going to wrap up some of our news and type of updates for this week. We didn't really have a patch or anything, guys. A few things kind of to go over is we love your feedback, and we want your feedback not only on YouTube, but also on iTunes. The audio version's available on iTunes, so if you guys are at work or going to the gym or on your way to work and you want to listen to it, check it out on iTunes. Just search for the SMITE update. If you need an Android feed, just message me privately on Twitch, and I'll shoot that to you. But I thought I would go ahead and let you guys know that we're kind of up in the air where the show's at right now and what we're going to do with it. If we're going to go audio, video only on YouTube, if we're going to go on Twitch. We've been getting a good response with Twitch, and YouTube's been huge, so that's been really awesome. But I thought I would go ahead and, we'd like to answer your questions. We want to get back to you guys as often as possible. And we had actually someone go on iTunes and go ahead and give us a 5-star review on iTunes, so we definitely appreciate that. We're only 3 episodes in, this being our 4th. And so he had a comment, and he also had a question, so I thought I'd go ahead and read it here. Very well-rounded podcast that is obviously run by 2 people who know what they are talking about. Can't wait to see if it follows a specific schedule instead of only during patches. What is your guys' opinion on Smite's ability to become an esport with the replay system in place? 5 out of 5, and I hope you answer my question. Thank you for what you're doing for SMITE, and this is from Featon. So thank you, Featon, for the 5-star review, and I'll actually throw that question over to Dry Bear first. Once again, that question was, what is your opinion on Smite's ability to become an esport with the replay system in place they have now?
I think it's crucial. I mean, we did see LOL succeed quite effectively without replays or even spectator of any kind. I mean, you had to have a third-party program in order to spectate anything or watch replays in LOL, and it still took off. So I think they're having that functionality this early is very, very important. Replays and spectating are just such a huge part of competitive games and the esports scene that having them this early, along with having a good competitive scene, really does help it grow almost twice as fast. So I think it's almost necessary, especially for a new game starting out in such a saturated market.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing, and I think we've seen a huge growth in regards to the discussion of esports. A few weeks back, I think it was, they made the announcements regarding the replays. Like, okay, we're going from a spectator only with a few of people that had the account to all of a sudden, hey, we're going to start to allow, replays going on in game. And you don't have to have spectator mode in order to watch replays. Anybody, as long as the replay flag is on that match, anybody can go back and check it out. And I think that's like the first step to push your game forward when it comes to esports. You need to be able to share your experiences. Hey, I played a game and I want to share it with Dry Bear. I think it's it's a key. Instead of being like, oh, you have to go watch my Twitch VOD and you can check out the game. I think it's key to allow you to do that. And then also for the casual players to be able to go and watch the competitive games that from like Juice or SK or our Reason Gaming, I think that's huge to be able to go do that, and it starts to intertwine the community a little bit more. So I think that's huge. I think replays are only going to become bigger and bigger from here on out, and hopefully things will start to develop here, and hopefully we'll start to see a few community websites built around replays coming out here shortly. I don't know, smitereplays.com. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. We'll see. Make sure you guys do check out Dry Bear's shoutcasting, though. He does some great shoutcasting. Outside of that, before we go ahead and head out for today, guys, we want to take some viewer questions. So I'm going to let Dry Bear go ahead and decide. There is a little bit of stream delay, so go ahead and post any questions you have for Dry Bear or myself regarding Smite, regarding ourselves, gameplay, any of that. We'll take 5 or 6 questions depending on the length of time, and then we'll head out for today. So
there's already one there. The god on screen is Neath. It's the new god that's supposedly coming out. So that's an easy question to answer right away.
There you go.
But yeah, it's just the scene's growing. And I really do enjoy the growth of Smite and the things they're doing with it. And I think if they continue making smart choices, and I like that they experimented in the beginning of the beta, with the focus and with the passives, and they kind of went ways that people weren't really excited about, but they did it in such ways that I think it really helped them learn. In a lot of ways, they overpowered gods or underpowered them or over nerfed or nerfed too hard. But by going too far, they really realized where that line is. So I think the beginning, you spell it with Neith for Wender.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they kind of started off like they started off and then they went into abilities and they went crazy with abilities. And then from there, they kind of were like, oh wow, we have to take this back. They completely ripped it away. And then they did the same thing with stats. They put in stats. And they're like, oh nope, we're getting completely rid of it. So I'm glad to see those things done in beta and not brought over into the live game.
Yeah, I can agree. I mean, we'll just have to see how it grows. I mean, we have a long road ahead of us as far as the Smite community goes, but as long as we keep making good choices and working hard, I think we can get there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see any
What
questions
gods that
here.
aren't in Smite yet would you like to see implemented? I would
Hmm.
like to see more Norse gods.
Yeah,
Um,
Norse gods would definitely be cool. I mean, I know we have a few now, but I definitely I feel like the Egyptian. I don't have the count in front of me or the god sheet in front of me. But I feel like Egyptian and Greek are getting pretty far up there.
yeah, I think that some Chinese gods would be good. A little more Hindu as well.
Yeah.
I know they took some flack for some of the Hindu gods. There was some Hindu religious groups that were, upset at the fact that they were portraying their godhood in a video game. But I think, that I don't know if that's dealt with or whatever. But I would like to see some more Hindu or Chinese as well.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to. If you look at game, they kind of have some gods from a long time ago with your Greeks, your gods in there, your Egyptian gods in there, and so it's a little bit easier to implement those gods. Whereas when you, as Drybear had said, you start to talk about like Hindu gods and Chinese gods, gods that are still large religions that are involved in large religions in the world. They have to be very careful, and a lot of people comment on, oh well, why didn't they put like any like Christian in there, like Jesus or stuff like that. And I think it's because of their sensitivity to it. They don't want to have a huge outroar because people are playing Jesus and blah 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 and all that stuff. So I completely understand. I mean, do you have the same feeling when it comes to some of the more widespread religions?
I would just want to see characters that are interesting and fun to play. I think the religious aspect of the concept design for Smite does prove to be challenging, but I'm more focused on the gameplay than
Yeah.
the backstories are interesting, but I'm more focused on how the game plays and how balanced it is, and I like the idea, but I don't want it to be too much of a limitation.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Any other questions we got here?
Jesus is OP apparently.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And yeah, some people had mentioned about the AO skin. There was an AO skin posted on Reddit. I don't know how legit it is or not. It looks pretty cool. Some people were saying how it's very similar to the Chinese New Year's dragons that are involved there. So I hope it's legit. It would make sense due to the timing. But yeah, did you see that post at all with the AO?
Yeah, it looks cool. And the thing is, we're kind of heading into that time frame as well. And I think there's also going to be a Cupid Valentine's Day skin, and then we'll
Oh,
probably see a patch next Thursday since it is Valentine's Day. So I think they're going to plan something with that. They did have a Christmas, skin-based thing with the Bacchus and the Hell. So we'll probably see. We might see the Chinese New Year and the Valentine's Day Cupid next Thursday. That's my prediction.
okay, okay, makes sense there. What's we have here? Is Smite out of beta mode? No, it's in open beta. It just started. Oh, here's a good one. Do you think we need more mages?
I think we need more everything.
Okay.
I think we're just limited. I mean, it's not even about, the characters. I think we're just so low on gods that we just need more everything. Probably not as many magic damage tanks, but pretty much everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is my favorite god and my build with him, her? I don't know. I'm enjoying Ao Kuang. Getting a Book of Thoth and going hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I always enjoy going with like a tanky Ra to start out with. I mean, I guess you could say like starting out with like a Doom Orb and then going into boots and building him a little bit tanky so he has that great sustainability. Yeah, I mean that's kind of my favorite god as well there.
Yeah, the
Alrighty.
skin's on screen right now. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, well, would you like to take probably about one more question and then we'll head out for tonight?
If there is any.
Alrighty.
So you could choose one god to remove, who would it be? Um, that's a good question.
It is, isn't it?
Freaking Hebo. Just get rid of him.
Why? Why Hevo?
Just get rid of him. He's so annoying.
Oh, let's see. If I was to pick one god.
Bacchus is fine. Bacchus is just a nuisance. He's just
Yeah.
the drunk guy at the party everyone ignores.
Yeah, yeah. If I had to pick one that really gets me going, I think I'd have to say Loki. And I think it's because a lot of times I find myself playing that mage a lot, and his burst damage is amazing. And you can't leave him alone too long. So he's probably the one that I would definitely look to kind of scoot under the rug there if I really needed to and had the chance to.
Yeah, we did see that in the last tournament.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah,
Little
he
lefties.
did awesome. But he definitely had some ganks on people. Well, great guys. So make sure you guys check us out in the future with any new patches coming out. When we do a live show, we're definitely going to be looking to do it right here on Twitch. So make sure you do follow this channel. Make sure you also do check out Drybear at twitch.tv/Drybear. And as I said before, you know, we're going to have an audio version as well on iTunes. So you should see that up within the next day or so. So if you caught this late, or you want to, you know, listen to it again to kind of go over a few things, make sure you check it out on iTunes. And last thing for me really is special thanks to nomoonart.com that did some of the graphics for the Smite update. You know, voluntary work is kind of hard to come by these days, especially people with a lot of talent. So it's really appreciated when someone steps forward to say, hey, I like what you're doing. Let me help out. So I definitely appreciate the volunteers there. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Why don't we have let Drybear close us out?
Well, that's gonna be the Smite update for this time around, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow, as Octane did say. And we'll probably be doing this every single week, regardless of the patch or not. But we probably will be seeing a patch next week following or on Valentine's Day.
Sounds good. We'll see you then, guys. Thank you very much.
See ya.